I bet, like me, you've probably seen a lot of these kinds of mailers showing up and ads with these kinds of messages on television screens. You might have even seen billboards like this one out there too. Setting national campaigns aside, our politics on a local level is pretty friendly, all things considered, which is why heading into election season, it's a good time to talk about the process that makes voting possible and how you can participate in our representative government. Even though election season isn't America's favorite pastime, we still have the responsibility to decide who is going to lead us into the future, to make the hard decisions on a local level, all the way up to the presidency. It is important for every registered voter out there to remember this date on the calendar, Tuesday, November 5th, the date of this year's nationwide election for local, state, and national positions. Polk County Elections Director Noah Beck joined me for a sit-down interview in his office in recent days to talk about what's coming up for the presidential vote, the deadline to register to get absentee ballots, and much more. I'll have some info popping up on the screen throughout the conversation, but for now, make sure to check out the description for more information about where to check the status of your voter registration, where your precinct is located, on the Secretary of State's My Voter page. I'm Kevin, the editor. Let's get into our conversation with Elections Director Noah Beck on this long overdue return episode of Talking Points on Polk Today. Well, Noah Beck, thanks so much for sitting down and talking with me today. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions about what's going on with the election. And a lot of people want to make sure that their vote is secure, that their vote counts, and that there's a lot of misrepresentations out there on both sides about what's been going on. So let's stick to it. Right with the facts.
Gotcha.
And I guess the first fact that we ought to get right out of the way is let's talk a little bit about voter registration, because I'm sure people are getting stuff in the mail saying, hey, have you registered? We've sent this form in for you. It's great. You don't have to do a thing at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's very frustrating on our side because it's not the voter's fault. And the voter comes in here frustrated. And there's nothing that they have done to cause this. So political organizations on both sides of the aisle get a lot of voter engagement from sending out mailers or text messages or phone banking saying a couple of different things. One, our records show that you're not registered. They may have gotten a voter list for Polk County, they may not have. But what they know is that if they tell you our records show that you're not registered, you're going to do one of two things. You're going to either call me and say, am I registered? Or you're going to send in a voter registration. And either way, they won, because now you are engaging with the voter registrations office and you're probably going to vote. And their data a lot of times will show that you're probably going to vote for them, for their side of the aisle. And so that's what they're trying to do. Don't think that that's any communication from my office. Don't think that that's any communication from the Secretary of State. These are political organizations, sometimes political parties themselves, that are just trying to drive up their voter engagement. They're trying to talk to you, so you come and talk to us. We're more than happy to check a voter's voter registration. We're more than happy, to make sure that you're getting the absentee ballot that you wanted. But don't take everything that they're saying to you as 100% factually accurate, because they're not the authority to speak on it. Me and my office are, and we want to get as much accurate information as we can out there. Just know that it's the new age form of junk mail. It's the new age form of those little postcards they send you in the mail. I know a lot of people are getting those here recently. It's been very heavy with us having to check people's voter registrations, them coming in saying, we got this in the mail, or we got this in the mail. And we're, like I said, we're happy to do that. And it's not the voter's fault that they're misinformed. But those are just political operatives, political agents, political organizations trying to get you engaged with us. So it's working, but just don't always take it as factual. And a lot of people see that, and I don't blame them, because they make them look pretty official, and they say, "Oh, I'm off the voter rolls. Someone kicked me off the voter rolls," when they were just voting with me back in June, or just voting with me back in May. So you just can't trust 100% of everything you get from these, or that they're going to represent themselves, honestly.
Right. Okay, so I'm Joe Schmo. I know how to do this, but I'm Joe Schmo. I don't know what I'm doing. People tell me that I need to register, but I know I'm registered.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to bug you, because I know you're a busy guy. What am I, Joe Schmo, supposed to do to find out if I'm registered, but not necessarily have to call up here and take up somebody's valuable time?
And there's some people that don't want to call or send an email, and if you're in that category, that's more than okay. The Secretary of State's office launched a tool called My Voter Page in the 2022 election year, and it's still up and running and operable and factually accurate. So all you have to do is go to My Voter Page. I'm sure Kevin will give the
I will
viewers
include a link in the description and on the screen.
You do a really good job of getting that out there for us. But you go to that link, and all you have to put in is the first letter of your name, your last name, your date of birth, and the county you're in. Those 4 things, and it's going to bring up your voter profile. And don't worry about other people being able to go in there and see yours, because the only information it shows is the publicly viewable stuff. The same thing that someone could come in here and get an open records request for. But it's going to tell you your voting precinct. It's going to tell you when's the last time you voted and your voter history for everything behind that. And it's going to tell you about your registration status. It's a good place to check. There are 3 statuses. You're either going to be an active voter, which means that we know you are who you say you are. We know you're still located where you say you are, and we've seen you recently. When I say recently, I think it's 4 to 5 years. We've seen you in the last 4 to 5 years. You could be in inactive status, which means when you show up to vote, you're still going to get to vote. A lot of people see inactive and they get scared, but you're still going to get to vote. But what that means is we haven't heard from you in a while. And there has to be a middle ground between us saying, we know this person is who they say they are, and they still are where they say they are, and cancel them, kick them off the voter roll. You may be in that inactive status. When you vote in November, it's going to bring you right back on to active status, and you'll be good for the next 4 or 5 years. We hope you vote with us more than that. Or you may get on there and see that it's canceled. And your voter registration can get canceled for many different reasons.
Let's go into that a little bit. Because I know that there's been some conversation over the past year about purges. There's been lawsuits. There's been a little bit of back and forth. So have we experienced any of that, and why would that happen?
Yeah, and so the cancellation process is very protected by law, and it is. Georgia is one of the states that errs on the side of the voter a lot to make sure that we're not just taking you off the rolls willy-nilly. They're not going to do that to voters in Georgia. What happens is that over the course of an election cycle, someone may get charged with a felony. If you get charged with a felony, as long as you are actively serving a felony sentence, so you've been convicted of that felony, you can't be on the voter rolls until you've completed your sentence. You get removed. So very rarely, vital records could get mismatched, and that's I'm talking very rarely, like 1 or 2 times a year. Someone gets canceled because they pass away. We don't want dead people on the voter rolls. But it just so happens that you have the same first and last name and date of birth as that person, and we didn't have enough social security information on one or the other to say that these are definitively 2 different people. Very rare that happens. But the other way is voter roll maintenance, and voter roll maintenance is a huge umbrella that takes up a lot of our time. It's a process that we are constantly going through. But a good example is we check it alongside something called ERIC and NCOAs. And so if you are still on my voter rolls and you move to Alabama, Alabama's not a good example, they left ERIC. You move to Virginia and you register a car there.
Okay.
And you say, I now live in Virginia to Virginia. We know that. And we say, you can't live in Virginia and live here and be on my voter rolls. We have to cancel you and take you off. And that's what most of the people want. They want those clean voter rolls. They want them to be accurately kept. But big media will pick it up and say, this week, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger ordered that 180,000 people be purged from the voter rolls of the state of Georgia. And that's just a misrepresentation. The law dictates that we must maintain them in this order by these dates on these weeks. And so those processes are constantly being done. It's just, it has finally hit the week where we're at the legal deadline. Let's remove them from the voter rolls, because we're not going to let you register to vote in Virginia and register to vote in Georgia. It's very strict how you can be registered here and either be registered somewhere else or your statuses, like your felony status and things like that. Keep a very close eye on that kind of stuff.
Okay, so
which people want.
An example I think that might maybe make a little bit more sense to people. Say you are a student at University of Georgia, and you are in the midst of studying. This year's an election cycle. You want to vote. Would you ask for an absentee ballot or come home to vote, or would you have been registered in Athens because now you're getting mail in Athens, but maybe that's not your permanent address? Like
it's
you know how you can go back and forth on that.
And that's a very good question too. And the answer is that office to office, you are going to go back and forth. There was a case last year, just recently, with Berry College, and just up in Rome, where Berry College students believed that they should be able to register as a voter in Floyd County, and the law doesn't agree with that. Your residency doesn't legally change just because you're attending an educational university. There's a couple of exemptions for if you are participating in this, your legal residency does not change. Higher education is one of them.
I imagine military service would be another.
Yes, very correct. Military service is even more protected, where we have to let you remain registered here, and even your spouse by proxy can become registered here, even if they've never been a resident of Polk County in their entire life. And so the educational situation is a good one. They should be getting an absentee ballot or coming home to vote. But there are many election offices from pressures, internal pressures, such as the university system advocating on behalf of the students, which is their job. They'll allow them to register to vote in that county. The Board of Elections will take a vote and say, no, we consider these people residents, we will let them vote here. Now, you can't have a voter registration in Polk County and in Athens-Clarke County. You can't have both. If you register there, we will cancel you here. And
you'll show up both times, and somebody at some point will figure out, hey, you're not supposed to be
pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, within 24 hours of you doing it, you're going to go into our duplication review. And so basically, what we know is that we have 2 records for this individual. You shouldn't be in Athens and here. One of them's got to go. We're going to go with the one that has a later date on it, because we're going to say the last we knew, this person was saying, I live at 123 Wallaway Way in Athens, Georgia, cancel me in Polk County. And I don't know that person's a student, So all I'm saying is, as far as I know, that person just moved to Athens. So I'm going to cancel that person. You shouldn't change your voter registration. I will say that. You shouldn't change your voter registration because you're going to school somewhere. You should vote by absentee ballot, or you should move, or you shouldn't move. You should try to come home and vote, because higher education is not a qualifier for changing your residency, especially if you're living on campus. It's really not a qualifier for changing your residency. And a lot of times they don't have reliable addresses and things like that. So I totally understand it's a wacky situation, but there's a ton of wacky situations like that where we have to know the hard and fast rules of it, and we have to make sure that we're following them to keep our voter rolls clean. Luckily, we don't really have any higher ed here, residential higher ed here, so we don't get into situations like that as much, but we have to know the rules for when one of our voters goes to Athens or goes to Berry College or goes to Tech or goes down to Augusta and tries to register to vote there. We can't allow that.
Okay, so how long do people now have, if they aren't registered to vote or are worried about their registration status, to check before we have this very important election coming up for statewide seats and national seats, the presidency, and
so you've got until October the 7th at 5:00 p.m. So that is the last day to register to vote. That's the last day to register to vote, October 7th at 5 p.m. when my office closes. We won't be able to change a voter registration after that. We can't add you in, and we can't alter the one that you have, because the law dictates that our voter rolls are locked at that time on that date for an adjoining election, 4 weeks later. We can't alter past that. It's October 7th, hard and fast. I will have more provisional voters because they registered on October 15th or October 10th or October 8th at 9 a.m. And no matter what, you weren't a duly registered voter. You didn't meet the deadline in time. There's nothing I can do about that there, unfortunately. So you have to meet that hard and fast deadline. If you're trying to do it online and you're worried about if that application went through, call us. Because as long as it's in, I don't have to process it. I've got 3 days to process it, but as long as it's in, you're good. If you're going to submit it at 4:30 on, October 7th, call us and make sure, hey, did you see it come over to you? And we'll be happy to tell you, because what I don't want to happen is for you to miss the deadline and then you try to go vote. We want everybody to get to vote that wants to try to vote, and we need to make sure, that it's in by October 7th at 5 o'clock p.m. You can turn in a paper registration here to the office, or you can turn it in online at that same link, Secretary of State's office, My Voter page. You can register to vote there through online voter registration. Either way is good news for us. We want you to register to vote.
Okay, so for the people who for some reason can't make it back to Polk County to vote in person either early or on the day of the election, which I believe is November 5th this year, correct?
Yes, Tuesday,
okay.
November 5th.
All right, so if they can't come back, they need to get an absentee paper ballot sent to them. What's that process like currently? What do people need to do?
Gotcha. So starting on August 19th, we started accepting absentee ballot applications. You have to apply for an absentee ballot application every single election in the state of Georgia. That application comes in, we review it, we make sure that you're registered to vote, because you can't get an absentee ballot if you're not registered to vote. We make sure you are who you say you are and all that good stuff, or that you had authority to request that ballot. Say you're requesting it for your son that's on a 2-month cruise down in the Caribbean that can't get to it. He's out of the county, you have the legal authority to request it for him.
Or a parent, for instance, who is disabled for some reason.
Exactly. So we make sure that either you are who you say you are, or you're authorized to request for who you're requesting. And then we take those and we collect those, and then by October 7th, that's also just so happens to be the day that we can start sending out absentee ballots.
Okay, folks, we're going to pause for a quick commercial break here. We'll be back in a moment after a word about our sponsor. This episode of Talking Points on Polk Today is brought to you by Gaiman, McFall, and Villarreal, attorneys at law in Cedartown with decades of experience in litigation of all kinds. The attorneys and staff at Gaiman, McFall, and Villarreal are ready to take your case today. Visit their website at gmvlawfirm.com or give them a call today at 770-874-1732. Okay, folks, let's jump right back into the conversation with Elections Director Noah Beck here on Talking Points on Polk Today. Okay, so the application deadline for grabbing an absentee ballot is when again?
It's October 21st. And so that's a different rule, though. It's not 5 p.m. So 5 p.m. is when we'll close our office. You can't get them here anymore. You can't turn them in here anymore. But you can submit those online up until 11:59:59.
And I imagine that's through the SOS's My Voter page,
My Voter
correct?
page. So when you go in there, you'll scroll down, you'll see it'll have it like an absentee window. It's not easy, especially if you're not computer savvy. If you're not good with a computer, try to do it in person. We're more than happy to mail you an application. We put an envelope in there. All you have to do is fill it out, mail it back. But it is available online. It's just, it has to have a wet signature on it, so you have to fill it out, print it out, sign it, scan it back in, and then send us the PDF.
Now, unfortunately, that is another thing that organizations have been doing lately, is sending out info to people about, hey, we're going to help you request this absentee ballot for you to vote this year.
Yeah.
And sometimes in a place that you might not even be registered anymore.
Yes, correct. And so they're sending out, it looks very similar to the absentee application that we send out. And this is probably the other thing that we're getting the most calls on. People are getting them in the mail, and after 2020, they changed the law. They have to have a disclaimer down at the bottom of them that says, I am not a voter registrations office. I'm not sending you this application as a voter registration office. When you turn it in, turn it back into the voter registrations office. You can use that application that they sent you if you want to get an absentee ballot. You can fill that out, you can send it back to me. It's gonna have that disclaimer on it. We're gonna take it and check everything out all the same, but we didn't send that to you. Don't think that we're just sending out absentee applications willy-nilly, because it's the same sentiment. There's a political organization out there that thinks that you lean their way, and they might even have a history that you voted absentee before. And so they're sitting there thinking, if I send them this application, they turn it in, they're probably going to vote for my people. And so it's advantageous for them to send it out to you.
Let's talk a little bit about that too, because I think that people have somewhat of a misconception about how the information when they vote is collected and used.
Yeah.
Okay, so for instance, I go vote on election day.
Mhm.
I split my ticket. I'm voting for the candidate, not
Perfectly
necessarily
fine.
for
Yeah.
the party.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. Now, they don't know how I voted
Correct.
specifically, but they know I voted.
Mhm.
They know where I live. They know probably my party preference because
Your primaries.
of the primaries and how you voted in that and which ballot you requested, not necessarily how you voted on my ballot.
Exactly.
And they can generally figure out through other public information if you've made campaign contributions before.
Yes, they're FEC filings. And that's a good point. And this isn't me dogging political organizations or anything like that. I'm just talking about the facts. Like you said, these people make an entire living off of doing what they do. Me and the assistant director here, Stephen, we've worked with these people. We see how they operate in a previous lifetime. They get paid a lot of money to be able to open records request this data and create lists out of the names on it that says these are the people that we're going to try to motivate to vote. They make a lot of money doing it. They're very good at it, and there's information that we legally have to make available to them. And it's the same information that people also request to make sure that we're running an honest and fair election, or to make sure that our audits are lining up, or to make sure that our voter rolls are clean. We have to have that information available. We have to have your name, where you say you live, and what elections you're voting in. We have to have that information available because, think about it. If I had a list of 200 people, I say, well, I had 200 people vote in the election, but then I cast 10,000 ballots that election. You're going to say something's off here. So we have to be able to match names to the amount of people, but not the ballot. You will never be, especially not here in Polk County, you will never be at risk of us giving out too much information. You'll never be at risk of us putting any of your personal information out there, like your personal identification information, or you'll never be at risk of us ever attaching you to a ballot. Vote your conscience, vote however you want to. Turn in a blank ballot for all I care. You will never be caught attached to a ballot. That's illegal. You have a constitutional right to a secret ballot, and they will never get enough information to be able to say, Kevin voted on this ballot, this specific ballot right here, and he voted this way. That's unconstitutional. It's very illegal, and it won't happen here. If I only have 3 provisional ballots cast and people are requesting the names of those 3 provisionals, I won't even release those because I think there's too much of a chance that someone would be able to tie back who to what ballot. And it's against fundamentally what we're doing here. They're going to get a lot of information, just not the stuff that's going to let people.
And both the county and the state of Georgia, since the 2020 election, have been taking additional steps to make sure that the information that we're reporting on election night and the information that is coming back in audits and the information being sent up to the state, it perfectly lines up.
Yes.
And that we are doing absolutely everything possible to ensure that your vote is safe.
Yeah, and there's steps that the legislature has taken to make it law to where we have to do some of these things, and then there's steps that the Secretary of State's enforcing upon us, and then there's also steps that the counties are voluntarily doing beyond that. And so one of the good examples are risk limiting audits. They started out as a mandate by the Secretary of State. The legislature picked it up. They said this is a good idea. Every time that there's a state or a federal office on the ballot, you're going to have to check a random sample of 20%. And if it doesn't line up, we're going to look into it. We're going to figure out why it isn't matching what the results said it should be. And now that risk limiting audit went from that all the way from just a Secretary of State directive all the way to a law. And there are also those of us, there's a handful of us counties, probably less than 10, but there's a handful of us counties that are going a step further and saying, I'll check every single ballot. I'll check 100% of my ballots and make sure that they match 100% of my results. That's not necessary. We do that for voter confidence. The random sample works. Statistically, that's math. If you check a random sample of 20%, the whole as well. But we've got the time and the resources, and we think it's worth it for voter confidence. We're going to check 100% of those ballots.
Let's talk a little bit about time too, because I think that the elections office does deserve a bit of praise. You guys have done an excellent job on election night of making sure that the results are coming out in a timely fashion. Polk County used to be one of the second to last in the state every time we had an election, didn't matter if it was a primary, didn't matter if it was November, didn't matter if it was special.
Yeah.
It seemed like every time.
Yeah.
For a good 10 years there. But things over the past couple of years, what has happened? Has it gotten easier to report to the state? Has the process changed in a way that allows you guys to speed up a little bit?
Yeah, so internal best practices were flipped on their head. I was hired here in March of 2022, and we sat down, we built a team that works incredibly efficient together, and we've got an incredibly supportive board of elections. And we looked at some of the things that we were doing, and we said, this isn't working for Polk County voters. It's the same reason we audit to 100%, because people don't trust results that take till 1 a.m. to come back, especially not in a county with 26,000 voters. Why does it take 6-7 hours to get those results in? It shouldn't. And so we said, what can we do to make it better? And we started asking around. There are other counties that were in the middle of trying to improve. There were other counties that had been on the top of that leaderboard. And I'll be honest with you, most counties that are as fast as us are very small. Their one voting precinct in South Georgia is at their elections office, and all they're doing is walking across the hallway to do it. And we said, well, how can we scale up what they're doing? And while Floyd County is making these improvements, or Bartow County or Paulding County are making these improvements, how can we scale down what they're doing? And so that first election in May of 2022, we did a lot better than I thought we were going to do. And it's kind of like at that point, we knew what we were capable of. We knew we could go faster. And people will talk about sacrificing efficiency for speed, or precision for speed, or accuracy for speed. And that's just not a part of the conversation. There is no precision, accuracy, or efficiency to be sacrificed. We have an all or nothing job. If we count the election results 99% accurately, we have completely failed at what we're doing. We have to hit 100%, we have to do it 100% correctly, or the whole election is, there's a confidence issue in it. We've not met our mandate to have confidence-inspiring, free and fair elections. So we went back to the conversation of that and said, people trust quick elections. People trust quick results. People don't want to wait until the middle of the night to get the results. And if it is physically possible to get from Aragon, First United Methodist Church at the time now, Aragon City Hall, from Aragon to the elections office in Cedartown in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, we should have our election results complete and ready for them in 35 minutes or 40 minutes. We should be able to provide the election results as fast as we're getting them in here. And they've also taken other steps to make that easier for us. They have changed some things with early processing of absentee ballots, and they have changed some things with early voting tabulation. But there was some serious greasing of the wheels. There were some serious second looks, and we said, with a lot of things, just not reporting, where we said, how can we make this better for Polk County voters? And I confidently believe that we have, and there will be some naysayers, and that's okay, and they'll say that we're going too quick, that we're focusing on the wrong thing. But this is a big job, and we can walk and chew gum at the same time. My results are accurate.
I mean, you're doing 100% audits after,
and they're accurate. And so that's why I can be the first person reporting in the entire state out of 159 counties. I can be the first person to say, okay, I'm starting to report my election results now, and I can be in the top 8 for finishing, even though I'm not as small as that 10,000 person county down in South Georgia, or that 15,000 person county up in Northeast Georgia. I can put myself in that 8 because we are working like a well-oiled machine, thanks to the staff here, the poll workers that are doing their job, and the Board of Elections. I mean, we're very fortunate.
Flip side of that, okay, so we're a county with a population above 42,000. Mm-hmm. We only have half of the people vote typically, or a little bit more than half, in elections or registered.
Give or take, yeah. So we've got something like 28,000 registered voters now, so we're doing a little bit better.
But I guess you're always going to have a portion of the population that is unwilling to participate for some reason. Mm-hmm. You have a portion of the population that's too young to participate, mm-hmm. so that would cancel them out.
Yeah.
So what is there that's kind of holding up the numbers from increasing enough to where we feel like everybody's got a voice?
Yeah, so I mean, the state average is for a full scale election. I mean, you'll be talking anywhere from like 55% to 58% sometimes on a good election. And don't get me wrong, Polk County does well. I mean, my goal has been, and we've met it pretty much, is to stay anywhere from 8 to 12% above the state average, and we do. But you're right, that's just of my registered voters, my turnout. Why if we have 42,000 people in the county, are only 28,000 of them registered to vote? And a lot of that is age or unwillingness, or maybe there's, maybe they're a non-citizen residing in the county that's here on a visa. Those people don't get to vote in our elections. There's a gap of people that we have a really hard time reaching. We put out good communications. My background's in communications. Our assistant director, Stephen Walker, his background.
I'm not saying that it's your fault,
but they're just incredibly hard to get with and motivate and translate them into interested, to being registered to vote, and then you have to go an additional step and saying, okay, we'll show up to vote. There are other countries that have completely different ideas, like Brazil is a mandatory registration state and a mandatory voting state. If you were born in Brazil, you're now registered to vote when you turn 18, and you must register to vote. There are countries that do it different ways than us. You have a choice whether or not you want to register to vote, and you have a choice whether or not you want to show up to vote. But there are misconceptions that, if I register to vote, I'm going to get called for jury duty. That's the only place that they pull. They pull from a lot of different places. It is one place that they pull from.
I'm gonna knock on wood. I have been living in Polk County since 2018. I have never been called for jury duty. I'm gonna knock on wood. I lived in Floyd County from 2007 to 2008 to 2018. I never got called for jury duty.
Statistically, it's rare.
It's very rare.
It's rare, and the voter registration list is not the main place that they're even pulling from. It all goes into a system called the statewide jury pool. I think you've been talking about it a little bit here lately.
Yeah, they use the DMV records,
yes,
other mailing records to figure that out and figure out where you live and make sure that your address is correct as it can be before they even send you a jury summons.
And one of the things that is frustrating is that people aren't deciding not to drive to avoid jury duty.
Right.
And so, like the DMV, they're going to pull your information from there just as quick as they're going to pull it from the voter rolls. But there are myths that you kind of have to fight like that. And I mean, Governor, if I'm not wrong, maybe it was Purdue or Deal, they passed a whole act about jury duty reform to try to get rid of unintended consequences, like people not registering to vote. And then you just have people that are, and it's perfectly fine to be, that so libertarian that, you refuse to vote. That's okay.
Or just unengaged.
And that's your right. That is completely your right. But what I never want is for people to assume that that's happening because there wasn't an effort made by this office. We're in the trenches, we are out there on the streets. I think prior to the May 2024 election, I did 14 speaking engagements the 30 days prior at different civic organizations. I'm out there doing my best. We're in the school systems, catching them as soon as they turn 18, saying, you can register to vote. As soon as they turn 17 and a half, we're giving them registration cards. We're doing the groundwork to be there and be involved in that conversation. It just, it's a very hard, especially once you get to about the degree that we are, that final, maybe 10% of the population that is eligible. It's very hard to convert them. And then to register voters, and even harder to convert them to, active, willing, constant participants in elections, actually getting them to show up. It's a whole nother step. And so, I have big hopes for the future. I think our turnout in November is going to be insane. I think it's going to be huge. I would love to crack the 15% ceiling. I've never been above 15% of the state turnout percentage. I would love to do that. And I think that this election is going to be a very realistic shot for us to do that. Polk County will come out and vote. Y'all love to early vote. Y'all love to early vote like crazy.
Oh, yeah. Early voting numbers here are fantastic.
There's a statistical anomaly. That doesn't happen in other counties. We love to early vote. We have 2 locations for
I
county
think
our
that's
size.
part of the reason why it works out so well is because we do have a Cedartown location. We do have a Rockmart location.
Yes.
They're open at reasonable times.
And for a county our size, we really would typically only have one. And so that might be it. But we love to early vote. And I would love to see our early voting numbers soar. I would love to see our first week early voting numbers soar. I don't mind having such a big rush that last week, but I don't want, and we don't have lines here, and you can attest to that. I've made very sure that we don't. You're not going to wait in line an hour. You're not going to wait in line 30 minutes if I can help it.
I think I've maybe waited in line once, and it was because I had to vote on election day for some reason.
And
I just couldn't
and
make
it probably
early.
wasn't that long.
No, it was like 2 people ahead of me.
Yeah, and we were very adamant about that. That's not because we don't have people showing up to vote. It's because we have a very efficient system inside of the precinct. But we turn out to vote. You're not going to have to wait. There shouldn't be hardly any deterrent for coming out and voting with us. We work very hard to make it as efficient as possible, and I would love to see our turnout percentage be really high this time. And I think that that's a possibility. I don't think that that's a fool's wish. I think that there's a very realistic chance that Polk County turns out to vote in the 65 to 75% turnout range. I believe that it could happen. And I think that people are very passionate about this election, and it's driving turnout percentage. I mean, we're having 80-year-old first-time registrations left and right. And I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see. We're so happy that people are getting involved. I know passions are running high for this one, but people getting out and voting, I don't care how you vote, is our objective here. We want to run clean elections, and we want you involved in them. And so that's our goal. Either way it shakes out. We don't get to have a vested interest in that. We just care that you show up. And if I have 75% turnout, I mean, I'll be giddy. I'll be as happy as could be. I mean, and I think it's possible. I really do. As long as people have the information, and that's why I appreciate our partners, our media partners, what you're doing, Kevin, and what our local governments are doing. We are very fortunate. And I say it all the time, but you can't say it enough. We are very fortunate to be working with people instead of against people, such as your team, your platform, the county administration team. We're not always going to see eye to eye on things, but they are, they're in my corner. And same thing with my board of elections. I mean, Richard Long, a lot of people know him, the fair guy, or he's your real estate agent, or you see his signs. That man has, done a lot for Polk County. I think he'll do a lot for Polk County for a long time. But he busts tail for some elections, and there's a lot of people that don't enjoy that. A lot of times people are working against their board of elections to hold secure legal elections, or they're working against their media to get accurate information out there. And we're fortunate. We're very lucky to not have to live in that.
All right, let's wrap up a little bit here and cover, make sure we got all of our dates covered. Okay, so October 7th, that is the final day to register to vote.
Yes.
At 5 p.m., that registration must be in this office.
Yeah.
Okay, October 7th is also the first day that absentee ballots can go out.
Yes, we're going to start sending them out that day. If you got one or you applied for one and you haven't got it, give it a week. We don't run the post office.
That Palmetto is wonderful right now.
We don't run the post office. Give it a week. On the 15th of this, I think the 14th is a holiday. On the 15th, if you don't have it yet, give us a call.
October 21st is the final day to get an absentee ballot request in.
Yep.
What time?
So that is 11:59.
That's 11:59.
Because you can turn it in from 5 o'clock to 11:59 online.
Right.
Or email. You can email it to us as well.
People need to have their absentee ballots in no later than the close of business.
Close of polls on election day.
Right.
That's one of the things. People think they have to get it in before us. You can turn in a ballot up until 7 o'clock p.m. in this office. You cannot take it to your election day polls. You cannot turn a voted ballot in there.
But look, if you're going to mail that sucker in, you better do it at least a week ahead of time.
Yeah,
Make sure that it gets here.
I wouldn't gamble with them and that's one of the things that people, it hurts my feelings every time we have to do it. You turn in an absentee ballot by the mail, and it comes to me on November 6th. I have to reject it. I can't count it. So yes, if you're going to use the mail, don't gamble. Give yourself a week, maybe more.
Okay.
Don't sit on it.
Early voting. I know that Columbus Day falls kind of weird this year on the 14th. So we start on the 15th, correct?
15th of October, which is a Tuesday. I know it's odd. If I could open up on that Monday, I would for you, but the law won't let me. We're going to go from 9 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday, as well as Saturday at both locations for 3 weeks. So we're going to go Monday through Friday, except for that first Monday through Friday and Saturday, 9 to 5, all the way up until November 1st, which is the Friday before the election. So 3 weeks, no excuse. come early vote with us. We've got 2 locations. One is
the Goodyear Civic Center.
Goodyear Civic Center, half a mile up the road from our office. The other one is the Rockmart Community Center, right next to McNabb Tire in Rockmart. It's there, open, a lot of space. We got our best teams in there. You're not going to have to wait. You're not going to have to wait in line. If you do, it's going to be such a short line. It's totally worth it to go and early vote. But those 2 locations will be open the whole time. You can go there and you can vote. And it's, dispel a myth, the exact same as voting on election day or casting an absentee ballot. We count them all the same. There's no election fraud or conspiracy happening there.
Hey, look, just because the results come in for absentee and early voting 5 minutes after the polls close, it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It's just that you guys are able to tabulate the results very quickly with that.
It's just, and if you understood it functionally, it would make total sense, and not everybody does, and it's not their responsibility to, that's what my job is. But it is functionally efficient, and it's the best way it works. Those results aren't populating in 5 minutes because we're doing anything nefarious. It's just we set ourselves up for success so then we can focus on getting those 7 precincts from election day back in. And we will be opening all 7 of them from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on election day, November 5th. And we'll be opening them up a lot sooner to get them set up and ready for you. But you can start voting at 7 a.m. You can start voting, or you can vote if you are in line by 7 p.m. So if you're there at 6:59 and 40 seconds, but it takes you 5 minutes to get to the line, you get to vote. So just to hop in line, if you don't know your precinct for election day, we got a lot of people that just like to vote on election day. Until I had this job, I was one of those people. I just like to go to Blooming Grove and cast my ballot. You can also check your precinct on my voter page that Kevin's going to so nicely put the link for you, put up for you. You can check it on there. It's got the address, the name of the place, and if you need help with directions, you can call us. We're going to be more than happy to get you from here to there. Because again, our number one goal is to get you to vote. Now, the results, when they come in, we kind of changed what's the most efficient, and I think you and some of our other media partners have caught on. You can sit around and wait for me to put that paper in your hand, but I'm updating my results to the Secretary of State's website in real time.
Right, and it comes in super fast now.
Yeah.
And it's
everything,
Johnny on the spot. I love it.
Results by county, right there. You can see Polk County's results. You're going to get them, because I do that, and then I print off the paper results that I'm handing out. If you want those election results, you want to see how people are performing, you can go to the Secretary of State's website, go to election results tab. You're going to get those in real time. As soon as I put them in the computer, from our secure computer, they're going up. So, and then we'll get to talking about the audit, one day. I'm sure you'll do some stories on it. We'll put out some information on it. But we've got some cool things coming down the pipeline with that. We're going to do our 100% audit. Again, we hope some people show up. They only matter if people show up, because you don't grade your own test without someone watching you. If no one shows up, they're pointless. But we're going to try a couple of new things as well. So we're really excited for that news to get out there. It's going to be coming in the next coming weeks. So if you don't mind, be looking for that. I know you're going to put some stuff out there about it.
For sure.
But we're really excited. Me and my wife keep saying, she works in the field too. Me and my wife keep saying, we're very excited to be in December. Very excited. This is the first election that I've ever ran where I cannot have a runoff election. It is impossible. And just in case something weird comes up, it's impossible. We will not have a runoff election, more than likely. Every race only has 2 candidates or is not runoff eligible. So November 5th, do your civic duty, and then I won't bother you unless a special comes up for like 8 months.
All right, well, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Noah, thanks so much for sitting down with me. Go vote on before November 5th. Please, just go early vote, get it out of the way. It'll be so much easier on you. You won't have to be out and about in the cold on November 5th. We're knocking on wood for cold November 5th.
I hope cold.
It already feels like fall, it seems like
this
week. But, so thanks so much, Noah. We very much appreciate it. Thanks once again to Elections Director Noah Beck for taking up a lot of his valuable time to sit down and discuss the upcoming vote and the information all around it, including dates to make sure that you are registered, to make sure that you can get an absentee ballot, and make sure it is returned on time to be counted if you don't plan on voting early or in person. Make sure to look for additional elections information and coverage throughout the rest of the campaign season heading into November on polktoday.com. I'm Kevin, the editor. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Talking Points on Polk Today.